into this first practice, and already the backup car is coming out for Kyle Busch. He won this race in April, and now coming off turn number 4, getting ready to take the green in what looked like a mock qualifying run. He gets into the wall. Take a look.
He's on the bottom of the racetrack. See the car moving around a lot. He gets loose, gets up the racetrack, and just never quite got the car under control to ride along with. You can see, watch his hands. He knows he's in trouble right here. He's in trouble. He's on throttle, and he goes back to the throttle, and hard contact.
Kill the racetrack.
And let's go down to Dave.
And right now the crew pouring over the 18 car. Crew Chief Adam Stevens telling Series Director Richard Buck he doesn't know what happened. They got 3/4 of a lap, and that was it. They are going to go to the backup car. Kyle hopped out with steering wheel, gloves, Hans device in hand, and also the shocks that come off this car to put onto the backup car. Big, tough break early on for the 18 crew.
And coming into this race, 4 points ahead of the cutoff line as far as entering to the championship 4. So a little bit of a cushion, but that could go away. Obviously going to a backup car, not bringing the best car, obviously, to the green flag potentially.
Well, I'm not concerned about that. I think that Joe Gibbs Racing has the equipment that this backup car is probably as good as the primary. The question mark is, how does this adjust your weekend? Because we're in Texas, which, while it might seem close to a 2.5-hour flight, it's a long truck drive. So they don't have a third car out here. And with Phoenix being next week, the teams are already really taxed in transportation end, getting cars all across the country. So how does this 18, how do they approach the rest of the weekend? How aggressive can Kyle be in qualifying? Will he have to just, you know, Jeff, we're talking 5%, just give a little bit of safety room to not damage the second car. So while it might not be directly, you know, obvious how it's affected the 18, other than some practice time, I think it's going to be in the back of Kyle's mind.
Oh, of course it is. And I will say this: if you're gonna have to go to a backup car, now's the time to do it, right? I mean, it's better than 3/4 of the way through happy hour. Now at least he'll get the entire time on this car and race trail. His qualifying time is going to get limited by a great deal, but he'll really lose no race practice whatsoever because they were probably going to run only Q film today anyway. So certainly not the best case scenario for them, but in a bad situation, I think they can make it work.
Well, hey guys, keep in mind, too, this was a brand-new race car, not the one you're looking at there, but a brand-new race car that was on track for Kyle and Marty reported on NASCAR America this week. All the Gibbs cars have brand-new equipment, so you were hoping to use that to utilize all the updates you had. Of course, this will be just a little bit older chassis with most of the updates.
Yeah, so, you know, perhaps to your point, Rick, you know, maybe there's something not in this car that would have been in the new car, but we also have to remember this is the one negative when you have 4 cars in the chase. You know, say the 19 or the 11 weren't in the chase, then Kyle could lean on them, maybe lean on their backup car if they need it. But with all 4 teams still trying to get a berth in Miami in the championship 4, you know, this will affect the other 3. Maybe not directly, but indirectly it'll pull a little attention away.
22 of Joey Logano. Saw a little bit of smoke coming out from the left rear of that car earlier. They brought it back into the garage, seeing if they could get a little more clearance. And it doesn't look like an issue for Logano yet.
Look at the wheel input. This racetrack, very slick. It's exceptionally rough. You see some mile and a half, they're able to kind of hold the wheel pretty steady. But at this racetrack, with the low grip and how rough it is, you'll see a lot of movement with that steering wheel. You see how much he's working it. This is I always consider this to be a really, really big short track. It does not drive like a mile and a half, a super high grip mile and a half. It drives much more like Darlington used to drive when it was old and worn out. Rockingham, those kind of racetracks, and you can see by the wheel input, it's different than most mile and a half.
Yeah, well, watch. So going straight, the orange tape is basically at the top of the steering wheel. So it goes down in the corner. You see the orange tape's turned to the left. His right hand's up top. But look, a couple of those corrections, the wheel's completely back straight. That's at 175 miles an hour. And he's in race trim. He's not in qualifying trim, but he's 8th fastest. He doesn't have a bad handling car. Austin Dillon is 7th fastest. Looks like he made a mock qualifying run, so his speed's good. It's just, this is Texas. That's just how your car's going to drive. And that's why I didn't drive, Rick. Pretty simple.
That's why you worked on it.
Well, yeah, because about the second correction right there, I would have been back in the comforts of the garage area.
And saying, this thing isn't handling very well.
Nowhere near tight enough, folks. Nowhere near.
So, I mean, nobody's car is going to drive well. And understanding what is acceptable is what matters, right? Because you won't fix it. I mean, you can make it better, but you're not going to you're going to make your car drive better than hopefully everyone else's. That's the goal. It's never going to drive good. You're just hoping to do it better than everyone else.
And Jeff, that's why I've always been impressed with drivers, especially seeing what Kyle Busch just did. Drivers can go out there and go wide open from the very beginning, the first lap out there, and just know that the car is going to be underneath him. And I've always wondered how you had that ability to do something like that. I mean, that was always the fascinating thing for me is you're going to go from 0 to 200 miles per hour and just say, I know the car's going to stay underneath me. And in this instance with Kyle Busch, didn't quite do that coming out of 4, but still, he was going as fast as he needed to go to get a good read on what that car was going to give him.
And the next time he gets in it, he'll drive you there the same way. And you have to trust the car. You just have to.
I was watching this 88. He actually ran, you see right there, good correction as well. So to your point, he doesn't look a whole lot different than the 22 as far as steering wheel input. But he was up the racetrack a little bit, 3 or 4 around that middle lane. But I think it was just because of a little bit of traffic. He since moved right to the bottom. Alex Bowman, we've talked about this, Jeff, doing a really remarkable job replacing Gerhard Jr. while he's out on injury, filling in for him. Had his career best finish of 7th at Kansas, but has run inside the top 5 in a lot of these races. Just can't seem to get that to the finish. But with 2 Xfinity poles here, perhaps this is the track that he's looking forward to.
And riding along with him, it seemed very lethargic compared to what when we were riding along with Kyle Busch or riding along with other cars. He just doesn't seem like he's in the gas nearly as much as anybody else.
And maybe it's an illusion, but his steering wheel looks huge to me. It looks like an old school steering wheel like we used to run a long time ago. It looks
Like he can barely see over it.
It may not be, but it just looks really large.
Let's go back into the garage and Martin.
Rick, a lot of the chasers have been on the track. One who has not is Carl Edwards. Remember last week at Martinsville, they kind of had this pace about the first practice they wanted to go through. I just talked to Carl a moment ago when he climbed in the car. He said, hey, it's the same exact story today. All we're worried about, qualifying. Slow and easy pace. Just make sure that we get better for qualifying this evening. That's all we're focused on tomorrow, since the weather will be good here at Texas Motor Speedway. Then we'll worry about race trim and also letting the racetrack come to them a little bit. So, Steve, sometimes you got to have a game plan coming into practice, right? Especially these chaser guys. And for the 19 team, it's a slow pace today. Just focus on qualifying trim, and that's it.
Well, the plan and the tempo and the energy of the team can be as important for the crew chief to orchestrate as much as the setup. You know, there are a lot of people that work on what shocks and springs go in this race car ring, engineers, mechanics, but only the driver and crew chief kind of set the tempo. And their approach, how just panicked they are or how relaxed they are, it flows through the entire team. So I like this approach for Carl Edwards and this team. You know, Dave Rogers, they're taking this methodical approach, and we'll see how it pays off. Remember, at Martinsville last week, they took this methodical approach, and it took 45 minutes of practice to get the car to even make a competitive lap. So hopefully the 19 will have a little more success here first thing. Remember, the 18
Already in a backup.
Yeah, already in a backup.
Already in a backup. There's Kyle Busch standing as the team continues to get the backup ready to go out on track. Ryan Blaney is now fastest in Texas.